Members, we come now to the votes in Finance and Government Administration Sector, Volume B5, Volume 5. And the question is that vote Audit, vote Communication Security and Intelligence, vote Finance, vote Office of the Clerk, vote Ombudsman, vote Parliamentary Service, vote Prime Minister and Cabinet, vote Revenue, vote Security Intelligence and vote State Services stand part of the schedules. I call Grant Robertson.
Oh, Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the call. It's interesting, Mr. Speaker, that in the weekend the National Party held their conference here in Wellington, and I read about Paula Bennett, who was like Paula Bennett was like the host of some kind of demented generation game show where she was pulling on Jonathan Coleman's hair to work out if it was a toupee or not. This was the level of debate and rigour and vision for New Zealand emanating from the National Party conference in the weekend. Was Paula Bennett taking texts from the crowd about which member of the Cabinet's hair that she could pull, and between that and the canapes and drinking the Kool-Aid, Bill English stood up and he told the National Party conference that it was all okay with the New Zealand economy slowing down, with consumer confidence collapsing, with business confidence collapsing, with employment confidence collapsing. That was all okay because it came at the right time in the electoral cycle. And that is now the extent of the vision for the economy from the National Party. It's governing not in the national interest, but in the interests of the National Party. That's the extent of the once ambitious National Party for New Zealand. The party that once upon a time, when there was a massive slowdown in rural New Zealand, with $13 billion disappearing from regional and rural New Zealand communities over a 2-year period, once upon a time the National Party would have stood up and said, this is a serious problem. It was only a few years ago that John Key said, when the dairy industry gets a sniffle, New Zealand gets a cold. But not now, not now, it's fine. It's a great thing. It's happening now, and by 2017, along will come the National Party, just as they did in 2010, with a wee package of tax cuts there, unaffordable as they were in 2010, come along in 2017 and try and bribe the electorate again. Meanwhile, while people are doing it tough right now in New Zealand, apparently that's a good thing for Bill English. Apparently it's a good thing that people are doing it tough, that there's 146,000 New Zealanders out of work, that for the highest number of people who didn't get a wage increase in 5 years, that's a good thing, Bill English tells the National Party at their conference. Well, Mr. Chair, that is a disgrace. That is a disgrace to come from the Minister of Finance to stand up and say that a slowdown in the New Zealand economy is good because it's happening now in the electoral cycle. I thought Bill English was better than that. I thought Bill English was a better person than that, but he stood up at that National Party conference and revealed that it's just about the politics. That's all that matters. A slowdown in the New Zealand economy, people losing their jobs, communities losing out is a good thing, according to Bill English. That's what he told that National Party conference, and that, in my view, is an absolute disgrace. Because this economic slowdown, there is nothing in these estimates to say to New Zealanders, here's the plan to get us out of this. Here's the plan. After 6.5 years of lazy economic management from this government, there's no plan in here to say how we will get ourselves as a country out of this situation. Instead, what we have in here is a lack of vision. What we have in this budget, and let's not mistake this for one moment, is $60 billion more debt than what this government had when they came into office. $60 billion more. They won't pay down under this budget a cent of that until 2019, Mr. Chair. Until 2019. There is nothing in this budget, nothing in these estimates to give New Zealanders that sense of hope that there might be some new ideas, that there might be some ideas for adding value to our industries, that there might actually be a plan to support diversification. Instead, all it is a continuation of trying to ride the wave of commodity prices. Well, guess what, Mr Chair? The wave's broken, and there's no plan B on that side of the House. The wave's broken. $13 billion is out of the economy, and there is no plan B. And what these estimates actually show is a complete lack of vision for the kind of economy New Zealand could have. One that actually supports a good life for New Zealanders in the regions, a good life for New Zealanders in Auckland. An economy that actually says we are going to be ambitious about lifting exports. They set a great big target for increasing exports, don't they? Up to 40% of GDP. What's happened under this government? It's gone down, and this budget sees it's tracking down even further. And Mr Chair, let's be absolutely certain, since this was put on the table, since this budget was put on the table, it's the downside scenario that's coming through. It's not the great upside scenario of growth around 3–3.5%. It's heading downwards. It's heading downwards. And there is no sign in this budget, no sign in these estimates that the government has any plan to do what happens when their precious, precious plan of sitting there and riding the commodity wave falls apart. And Mr Chair, I would have thought in Bill English's 7th budget he would be able to come to this House with a plan that says, I recognise confidence is disappearing from this economy, I recognise we've got to do things differently, let's actually plan. There's nothing here like that.
Members, I will call the member David Bennett shortly, and I need to concede that I should have called him first. I would encourage him to use the same voice he uses in interjections as he does in seeking the call. And bearing in mind his last